Hello there. Today I'm going to talk about the controversial ending of Battlestar Galactica. I'm going to cover the genetics, culture, and mythology, and explain why the colonists could or couldn't survive. Alright, let's jump right into it.
My back!
After years of flight, war, and near extinction, humanity's remnants finally find a new home. Only about 38,000 survivors remain from the once mighty 12 colonies, a fraction of a civilization that numbered in the billions. They arrive exhausted, carrying the scars of conflict with the Cylons, the weight of surviving, and the fragile hope that this world might offer a second chance. This planet, a prehistoric Earth, is not empty. Primitive humans, hunter-gatherers with simple tools and no cities, already walk its plains. The survivors, led by Admiral Adama and the remaining fleet leadership, make a radical choice to abandon their ships, their machines, and even their very culture. No cities will be built. No technology will be preserved. Instead of one great colony, they will break apart into small, nomadic bands, blending into the existing human population. The decision is both idealistic and desperate. Rejection of the cycles of war and technology that led them here, and an embrace of a more humble existence. Behind the hopeful image lie unanswered questions. Can a population so small sustain itself? Can advanced humans coexist with early Homo sapiens without catastrophe? And what hidden costs come with discarding everything they once knew in favor of this uncharted life? This is the moment where legend and biology collide. Arrival marks the dawn of our species as the show imagines it. But the reality, if we apply history and science, may have been far less idyllic. When two worlds meet, it is rarely the weapons that kill the most. It is the microbes. History offers scary examples. The Columbian Exchange after 1492 devastated indigenous populations in the Americas, where up to 90% perished. Not by sword or musket, but by smallpox, measles, and influenza carried unknowingly across the sea. The survivors of the 12 colonies, landing on prehistoric Earth with a population of only 38,000, faced the same silent threat. Earth was a biological minefield. Every plant, animal, and human carried a microbiome forged by a different evolutionary path. Common parasites, mild colds, or even diarrhea could have proven deadly to immune systems that had never encountered them. A scratch in the jungle, a sip of untreated water, or a cough from a native could ignite an epidemic for which there was no defense. Yet the danger worked both ways. The colonials themselves were carriers of viruses, bacteria, and fungi, born of the 12 colonies. To Earth's early humans, they were just as alien. History tells us that when isolated populations meet, one side often suffers catastrophic losses from unfamiliar diseases. The same fate could easily have unfolded here, with plagues sweeping through native tribes, destabilizing entire ecosystems before true contact even began. The series shows none of this. The landing is portrayed as a piece of cake. No mass burials, no quarantines, no desperate attempts at primitive vaccination. But reality would have been a lot worse. Disease does not care for noble intentions or hopeful fresh starts. The first years on Earth would likely have been marked by waves of fever and death, both among the colonials and the natives. Survival would depend not on technology, but on luck, resilience, and the gradual, painful merging of immune systems over generations. A population of 38,000 souls sounds like a crowd. That is until you ask it to rebuild as species. In genetic terms, the survivors of the 12 colonies represented a severe bottleneck, a narrow funnel through which the entirety of their civilization's DNA would pass. When populations are too small, they lose genetic diversity with every generation. Harmful mutations become more common, fertility rates can drop, and inbreeding can magnify rare disorders into population-wide problems. Is 38,000 enough? The answer is barely, but yes, if they managed it wisely. Conservation biology offers a rule of thumb. To sustain a mammalian species over the long term, you need at least several thousand breeding individuals. The colonials, assuming roughly half were of reproductive age and capable, likely met that threshold. In fact, their starting point was significantly higher than some historic human bottlenecks discovered by scientists. Where effective populations dipped to the tens of thousands during ice ages and other catastrophes, numbers alone were not the challenge. It was isolation. The survivors chose to scatter, forming small bands that would breed with Earth's primitive humans. Each band would have carried only a fragment of the fleet's genetic variety. Left alone, some groups could spiral into inbreeding within a few generations. But there was a solution. Exchange mates between groups, reproduce with the native population, and tracking of lineage shows mythology provides its own answer. The blending with early humans did happen, and it saved them. Hera, the child of a human and a Cylon, became the bridge not just between warring factions, but between civilizations. Her descendants carried colonial, Cylon, and Earth-native DNA into the future, a hybridization that erased the bottleneck and became the genetic foundation of modern humanity. When the remnants of the 12 colonies stepped onto prehistoric Earth, they brought more than just tools and stories. They carried languages, customs, and a view of the world forged by cities, starships, and centuries of war. The Earth's early humans lived in small, tribal societies shaped by survival, oral traditions, and intimate ties to the land. Colonials framed their arrival as a fresh start, a rejection of the destructive cycles that had defined their history. They destroyed their machines, abandoned their cities, and chose to live like the natives. Yet this decision raises questions that the series never fully addresses. Was it truly a partnership or an unspoken form of colonization? Even without conquest or technology, the newcomers arrived with advanced knowledge of farming, metallurgy, medicine, and governance. To a population still shaping stone tools, that knowledge would have been magic. The colonials, used to fleets and cities, would struggle to adapt to a life of mud and hunger. The natives, faced with strangers from the stars, might fear, resist, or mythologize them. The potential for exploitation, however subtle, was always there. And Battlestar Galactica ends not with a hard scientific thesis, but with a myth. The fleet's final choice is presented as the origin story of modern humanity. It is a story of reconciliation. Cylons and humans, once mortal enemies, now united. Technology, once the instrument of war, deliberately discarded. And Hera, the half-Cylon child, cast as the genetic mother of us all. From a mythic perspective, it is elegant. The cycle of violence is broken not by victory, but by surrender. The survivors become ancestors. The show closes the loop. And science, however, is less forgiving. Abandoning advanced medicine, sanitation, and infrastructure would have immediate consequences. For example, infections and childbirth mortality. Disease exchange between two populations with no shared immunity would have been brutal. The genetic bottleneck of 38,000 survivors, while survivable, would rely heavily on successful integration with native humans. An integration that, in reality, could have been very complicated. The show does not depict mass die-offs, failed crops, or cultural clashes. It offers a clean slate where none could truly exist. Yet this is not necessarily a flaw. It is a deliberate choice. Battlestar Galactica is, at its heart, a story about faith, in each other, in change, and in the possibility of a better future. Its ending is less a manual of colonization and more about humility. The most advanced civilization in history lays down its arms and lives like the people it once might have conquered. The closing image of Battlestar Galactica is one of peace. Green valleys stretching to the horizon, and exhausted but hopeful people walking forward into the unknown. The truth, if we peel away the poetry, is that the path was almost certainly brutal. Many would die, many cultures would vanish, and the scars of the old world would not heal overnight. But perhaps that is the message. Survival is not clean, and history is not kind. What matters is the choice to begin again. Not because it is easy, but because it is the only path left. So that's it. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time.